Today is water change day. I've set aside Saturdays, and I've done it for 2 weeks now, faithfully. But Saturdays are my water change days for my 3 tanks in here and my 1 tank in the living room. And so I'm going to start today with this tank. This is the 20-gallon long, in which I have placed my 40 or 50 or so baby African dwarf frog tadpoles that just hatched within the last couple of weeks. And so they're still pretty tiny. So I have 3 parts to a problem today that I have to deal with. The first is the fact that this tank is only about 9 inches from the floor, which makes it a little more tricky to siphon, to use a siphon to empty the water out and to vacuum up detritus from the bottom of the tank. The second part of the problem is I do need to clean up some detritus from the bottom. There's not a whole lot. It's just food that has settled to the bottom that I want to clean up to keep the water quality good in here. And this is the reason I kept this a bare bottom tank, for easier cleanup. Okay, so that's the second part of the problem, needing to vacuum up as much of that as I can. And then the third part of the problem is the fact that within this tank are teeny tiny tadpoles. They're probably maybe not even 1/4 of an inch long. The largest ones maybe 3/16 of an inch long, and many are smaller because they came from different batches of eggs that hatched my African dwarf frog eggs. And so what I have to be careful of is that as I am siphoning the water from the bottom of the tank, especially that I don't suck up any of those teeny tiny tadpoles, because many of them sometimes settle on the bottom, probably to eat at some of the food that's still there. And so I need to figure out a way to keep them from being sucked up into the tube as I clean. So I'm going to deal with those and show you how I will deal with those today. Alright, let's get going. Okay, so here's one way I've figured out how to start the suction. I have a tube right here. I think it's 3/8 or something, or 1/2 inch. And it's probably about 6 or 7 feet. I have one end down in my bucket, lower than the bottom of the tank, and then this other end I'm going to be clipping to the tank just to get the siphon started. And I want to keep that in the water, so I clip it. Then I take a syringe that I use for testing water, and I close it up, and it's just the right size to fit inside the inside of this tube. And so I take the other end of the hose That's going to be emptying into the bucket, and I'll talk more about the bucket in a moment. Just tight enough, but not so tight that I can't remove it easily. And then I'm going to make sure this is low, pull out on the syringe, and that should suck the water. And there it goes. Sometimes you have to do it more than once. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, gotta do it again. Okay, I think that worked. Yeah. So there comes the water. And now I can unhook this and use this to siphon the bottom. The first thing I tried was to put a piece of stocking on this end of the tube so as not to catch any tadpoles that I might suck up. But I'll just try to be careful, and this tube is better than my original method. Was using a turkey baster, which was awful tedious to get at everything, and this is doing just fine. And if it so happens that I do end up inadvertently sucking up some of the tadpoles on the bottom, the fact that I'm using this white 5-gallon bucket helps me to see them pretty easily, to use my turkey baster to take out of the bucket and return them to the tank. So this diameter tubing works well because it's not so huge that it'll suck too much up. I tried using an airline hose, just a skinny little airline hose, but it was just as tedious as using a turkey baster because the opening in the hose was so tiny. But this works fine. And I want to take out probably just enough to get the detritus from the bottom here. They say to do 10% every few days, but I'm just doing this weekly. And so right now I've taken out, well, I don't even have the tank filled to the very top. I have it down probably a couple of inches from the top, or 1.5 inches. So I want to get under that heater. Turn off the filter. I hope I'm not stressing out the tadpoles too much by being in their tank. But this is doing a good job. Of cleaning. And if I so happen to suck up some of the tadpoles, I can easily see them in the bucket. That's pretty clean. And I know I do have tadpoles in there, but I can see them and easily get them out of the bucket. We just had a little water slide ride, I guess you could call it. Okay, that's enough. Okay, and so empty the water. Out of the tube. And there you go. Now, I'm going to use my turkey baster to remove any tadpoles which I did get, probably about 10, and put them back in their home. Hope I didn't upset them too much. So the bottom of the tank is nice and clean. Okay, the next step is refilling the tank. I'm going to refill it to about 18 gallons, which is about here, and I kind of figured out an inch is about 2 gallons, an inch from the bottom. And so I had taken out about 4 gallons, I think. So I still have a gallon or so to go. I don't want to go all the way to the top, but I want to have enough so that the sponge filters will be totally covered by the water. So here's how I do it. I have filled this from the tap with warm water to get close to the 78, 80 degrees temperature, and then I put dechlorinator. I use Prime in the water, and now I'm going to use this to gently pour the remaining water in. It looks like when I was stirring the plants up, some of the plant detritus went to the bottom. So I think I'm going to get that now with the turkey baster, might as well. And again, double check, make sure I didn't suck up any tadpoles. Now this first time doing it, this method is taking a bit of time, but now I kind of know what I'm doing. So, okay, that'll be sufficient. Now, I'm going to put the various other things that I took out back in. And I have taken out the Anubias and the almond leaf, put it in the frog tank temporarily. Okay, and in the front of the glass, because it got all splashed with water. Then it'll be time to feed these guys. I think I'll feed them now. feed them now and then check in about 15 minutes to just make sure everybody's fine, because they come to the top when they're feeding, and then I'll be able to see how they're doing. Okay, so I got newly hatched baby brine shrimp in here. Lots of them in here. So I just kind of dribble it throughout the tank. Save some in here for my cardinal tetras because they love the baby brine shrimp too.